Something that I struggled with in the past and need to remind myself even today is that it's okay if they don't see the effort that you put in. Let me explain. Growing up, I never really had too many people supporting me or like cheerleading me on. I used to watch those sitcoms with the white families, and I was just like, man, I wish I was a white family, and I wish that I had people that really supported me. And it's not to say that I didn't, because people like my mom, she was always supportive. The women in my life were always extremely supportive, but the men, not so much. My dad was kind of absent in my life in the beginning of my life. My thoughts was he was going through the PTSD because of the Vietnam War and all the stuff that he went through. But then there was one person in my life who kind of filled that void for me, and it was my uncle, my dad's brother. And something about him, like, he would always get us video games during Christmas, which was really cool. I never really got that when I was like growing up. And then I remember doing really well on my report card, and he would take me out to Chuck E. Cheese. If you follow this channel long enough, then you know that he was one of the reasons why I learned how to invest, because he instilled this thought of investing into the market, the S&P 500, even from an early age of 11 years old, right? Me and my uncle, we've always had a very, very close relationship as we grown up. But it wasn't until probably my later years when I lived with my uncle for a bit in Vegas where things started to take a turn. I never knew how much my uncle disapproved of me quitting pharmacy, and I felt like he held a bit of resentment toward me. I feel like he wanted me to live my life a certain way of a pharmacist and stuff like that and go the stable route. And when I made the jump to entrepreneurship, it didn't really matter in his eyes. He felt like I was just like bumming around and being homeless and stuff. And obviously you're watching this channel that's been the furthest from the truth. Like, I've had my ups and downs, but I was always working during that time and just trying to figure out this business stuff, which is hard, I think a really hard part for me, even to this day, even when I was having those 30K months and stuff like that, and I would buy my uncle things like an iPhone because no one else in the family cared about my uncle that much and stuff. And I was always very thankful because he helped me during the early years of like school and stuff like that, or driving me to school. And I just appreciated him and loved him so much, right? But it got to the point where I just didn't feel very good around him anymore. And even though I still love him, I'm kind of making the decision to kind of give myself some distance away from my uncle. And what made this really painful was like, I'm older now, like my dad's passed away. I make my own decisions, but something that I really wish that I had with my uncle was that, not necessarily him approving of what I do or anything like that with the online world. I mean, my uncle doesn't even know how to take photos on his iPhone, never mind knows what AI is. His world is like in the past, right? I think something I wish my uncle would do would just take the time to understand my world a bit more, why I quit pharmacy, or how I was on the edge of literally unaliving myself and the stress I was dealing with and everything that I was going through. Because the truth is like, I don't think two people will ever see eye to eye on 100% of things. Never, probably. But the number one thing that I really needed was like that understanding of like, oh, Kevin's trying to do this. And even though I don't agree and I don't want to financially support him, which I never asked him for money or anything like that, but I think the emotional support of like, I hope you do the best that you can, even though I disagree. Like, I hope you do what's best for yourself. That's all I ever wanted. But it's really tough because I find that older people, they tend to be kind of stubborn in their ways of thinking. And especially as, with my uncle, he's very stubborn about things and he has a quick temper and he's very judgmental and stuff. In my mind, I think that's why like people like my uncle have always been single in his life, why he's never had a relationship, because he just assumes rather than ask questions and stuff too. I'm not trying to fix my uncle. My uncle is set in the way that he has, but like for me, I have to remind myself like there are going to be people like my uncle who don't support what I do, who won't take the time to understand, who will just automatically judge me. And I've dealt with this throughout my whole pharmacy career too, where people just thought that just because I want to quit pharmacy, it meant like I hated them or like I was against pharmacy. I'm like, I don't agree with the conditions of pharmacy. I think it's actually very predatory. I think it's really up how people treat pharmacists, right? Both patients and corporations and all that sort of stuff too, right? Like people are so quick to judge in this modern day of the internet and even these boomers, right? Rather than look at it like, oh, this is a bad thing, I've really come to accept it, realizing that, hey, I'm actually being somewhat polarizing. I'm actually trailblazing something new. It's okay if people don't understand what I'm trying to do because it's not their life. I think Alex Hormozy is really good at this. And he also said, like, when people want you to live a certain life, it's how they would prefer you live your life. They're telling you how they would like to live your life, but I'm not them, and we just choose to live different lives altogether. And so for me, it's been this kind of like adulting that I've had to do where I don't want to say I ignore the opinions of others, but I prioritize my opinion of myself and the direction of where I want. Because at the end of the day, my uncle is not the one that has to sit in a pharmacy for 12-hour days dealing with people shitting on your patient floor, right? My uncle is going to be gone in 10, 15 years, maybe sooner. He's not going to deal with the consequences. And it's like, I am the one that has to deal with the consequences of like my decisions of like being miserable in pharmacy. I see the writing on the wall of pharmacy. I don't think there's a future there. It's tough for people like my uncle, right? And so if you're watching this video and you're doing something new, I just want to remind you, you're not alone. Just know that they won't understand until you make it. And even if you do make it, it still doesn't matter. And ultimately, their opinion does not affect the goals that you have or the outcome of those goals too. It's something that I try to remind myself as well. So I'm just very grateful to have the life that I do have right now with all the loving people, the loving relationships, and all the people that have supported me on this journey. So if you're one of them, I just want to say thank you. Love you guys. And here's another video that the YouTube algo will think you'll like. I'll talk to you guys next time. Peace, mud people. Bye. Whoosh.